Sarah, at times like this, it's really important we hear a perspective from both worlds. And so it's so great that you're giving us the best of both worlds. Can you explain why Senator Kamala Harris was the standout pick?
This was a pick in Senator Harris that provided balance on the ticket. Joe Biden is 77, Kamala Harris is 55. There's also a gender balance, of course. She's a woman and he's a man. This was a historic pick. Kamala Harris is Black. She has an Indian mother and her father is from Jamaica. It's a story of immigration. It's a story of a woman of color. So there was history. And then there are what I call the 3 C's and a B. So that first one that we talked about was the C of competence. And this was especially important because there is a global pandemic. And there was this question of wanting to take it to President Trump in terms of his handling of that and his leadership. So competence was one. The next one was, what about constituencies? Who might this vice presidential pick help bring to the election? Is this going to get out the vote? And then the third one is chemistry. Joe Biden said he wanted somebody with whom he felt simpatico. And today, as he was speaking with Kamala Harris, he was talking about the fact that his son, Beau, who has since died, that there was a really great friendship between them. So there was that comfort there. And then, Sally, the final one is that B for baggage. You can't be in politics without roughing it up a bit. And he wanted somebody who was going to be able to stand the spotlight, the national spotlights.
Has Senator Harris got the experience? Has she got the ability to bring disgruntled Republicans with her, or is there baggage?
The Republicans are already laying out their talking points. They're saying that she's too far to the left, she's too liberal. President Trump has criticized her for being, in his word, nasty in the confirmation hearings for then Judge and now Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. So the Republicans are going to not like that aspect of her. But the point to remember here is that what doesn't work for the Republicans is going to work for the Democrats. So Joe Biden is going to hope that this choice of a running mate is going to energize his base.
Can a Veep win an election for a president?
You can look back in history and you can look, for example, at Kennedy picking Johnson as his running mate. And that was all about a senator from the Northeast who wanted to bring along the Deep South. And he was hoping that Johnson would do that for him. And indeed that happened. But in modern day, it's really more about not just helping to win an election, but not losing it. So, for example, in the case of John McCain choosing Sarah Palin as his running mate, well, initially that was greeted with a lot of enthusiasm, again, history. But as it happened and time went on, there was real dismay. So you don't want to blow it. And what's interesting about Senator Harris is, in many ways, she had been the one who had been looked at as the #1 pick all along. But during the course of that vetting process, a lot of other names were considered. It was definitely a situation where the former Vice President Biden, now the presidential nominee, wanted to have a running mate who was a woman of color. African-American voters have really been the mainstay of Democratic politics for a long time. So he wanted a Black woman as his running mate, and he looked at a lot of interesting competitors. But in the end, he came back to somebody who was pretty much his first choice all along.
Is there a positive in Trump calling her nasty?
For women voters, that is something that makes a lot of women bridle. It does seem to be a term that this president uses particularly for women as a criticism, and that can cut both ways. I think what is important to remember, and the Democrats definitely remember this, is that President Trump is a formidable opponent. He was looked at as being way down in the polls. There was no chance he could win in 2016. And while Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, President Trump won the Electoral College, and that means winning the election. So the Democrats are wary of that. But it's also something where they're ready for that. They know to expect that, and they believe that Kamala Harris, with this historic pick, being somebody who is of Indian and Black background, she is somebody who could potentially energize the party get more people to the polls, people of color, women of color, and also full stop women. That's what they're hoping will happen with this choice of a vice presidential candidate.
Where's the cabinet? It's like a surprise, open the box on your birthday. Can you explain how that works?
It's a giant surprise because it's almost considered in the United States bad luck to name your cabinet beforehand, because it's regarded as the height of arrogance. You don't know whether you're going to win or not. And there's another piece to that too. Every person you put out with their name is somebody else that the other side could potentially criticize. So that said, we do have some sense of who Joe Biden might pick in his cabinet. And I'll tell you why. Joe Biden has said that he wants to have a cabinet that reflects America, that he wants it to be diverse. And we know some of the people who have appeared in the shortlist for his vice presidential candidate. For example, Keisha Lance Bottoms, who's the current mayor of Atlanta, Georgia. She's somebody who's been a real figure in the Black Lives Matter movement. And she also, her family has personal experience with COVID, with the pandemic. That's a name to watch. Also, Senator Tammy Duckworth, a veteran, somebody who lost both of her legs when she was injured in a helicopter crash. She won the Purple Heart for that. She was also on the short list for vice president. Then there's Gretchen Whitmer from the state of Michigan. So there are a lot of names. And don't let me forget Senator Elizabeth Warren or Cory Booker. So here are some names that you might expect to get tapped if Joe Biden wins. But right now, he is focusing on the job at hand, his most important choice that he had to make as a candidate, and that's who's going to be my VP.
An election to remember indeed in these uncertain and unprecedented times. Sara, it is so good to hear from Best of Both Worlds, and I'll be looking forward to checking in with you over the next few weeks as this election campaign really ramps up.